And welcome to another recording of the Content Marketing Studio. We're back for another season to help you create better online content faster. Today, I'm going to put the spotlight on a very special friend and guest who's going to show us how we can use our voice, indeed, to build our brand and drive our business forward. I am your host, Pascal Fintoni, and today joining me is Events Director and Speaker Agent Hilary Dunne. Hilary, welcome to the Content Marketing Studio.
Thank you very much. Delighted to be here.
Oh, no, we are, because we're going to have so much to ask you about this idea of speaking and this idea of using essentially our knowledge and passion to build our brands. But before I do so, quick question, which I ask now at this moment in time, which is where are you and how are you doing?
So I'm in the Northeast. I'm based in Darlington and I'm really well, thank you. Yeah, I'm doing really, really well.
And clearly today is a sunny day in Darlington.
It is. It is.
You're very lucky.
As we've just been discussing, yes.
It's not so sunny, oddly, in Canada, which is only an hour away, give or take. So we have our own little microclimate. So at the time of recording this interview, which I think is going to do very, very well, we are entering in the UK what could be called phase 2 or the sequel of our lockdown and restriction measures. How have you been doing for the last 6-7 months, and have you had to adapt your business in any ways?
Yeah, obviously I work in the events industry. So from that perspective, it's been really, really tough. We've had a number of award events that we were working on with clients, and we've had to push them back and push them back. And we've had a few other events as well, working with other clients on. And again, we've been pushing back. The customers, our audiences have been absolutely amazing and completely understand that everything we're doing is very much with them at the heart of it, of making the decisions that we've had to make. But it's great now to see that the event software platforms have now started to really bring out these fantastic add-ons to the event platform, which is allowing us to be able to do virtual events. And we've been trialing and testing, and it's working really well, actually, which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, hats off to these event software developers who have been able to, in the space of 4 months, 3 to 4 months, have been able to create some absolutely fabulous software to enable events to happen.
Now, I might actually pick your brains on that to ask, what you've been playing with and where you are. But for our viewers and listeners, let me remind you that Hilary is the founder of Brand Activators, offering a speaker bureau service, coaching services to speakers as well, more recently, as well as being the go-to events producer and director. In fact, if you look at Hilary's career or check out her LinkedIn profile, you've done events, it would seem, forever. I mean, I have this image of maybe you as a child doing kind of shows and events for friends and family somehow.
Always. I love a party. I love an event. Yeah, it does absolutely, it does run through my veins, I have to say.
So I suppose it was inevitable that you should launch, the Brand Activators. But obviously, perhaps new to Brand Activators or unique to it is that speaker bureau service, as well as now the coaching services to speakers. So I just wanted to ask, your perception, being a speaker in 2020 onwards, that term, who does it represent? Who can be a speaker nowadays?
So many people can be a speaker. I think in the past it seemed to be you had to be a professional at the top of your game. You had to be sort of an Olympian, have achieved great things like that. But not now. People are using speaking and storytelling from a whole marketing and sales perspective. And it really does amplify anybody's brand once they've got their talk, whether that's a keynote, their signature talk, or it's their products, but they know it inside out and they're comfortable in selling and talking about that. It just elevates you far quicker as a marketing technique. It's free as well, obviously. And it comes from you yourself, and people buy off people is the old adage, isn't it? And I really stand by that people do buy off people. And the more people that can share their story, tailor it to their audience get to know, like, and trust them. And once you've got that, then you've got a really good, strong sales proposition.
So I'm going to go back to some of the things that you've said. So you're suggesting that there are different ways of speaking. You mentioned, for example, Keynote, signature, product demonstrations, or product storytelling, and so on. Is there any more? Because I think it's important. If we look at the whole range of of messages that you can convey, it might open possibilities for a lot of us.
Yes, absolutely. From wanting to be on a stage talking to 1,000 people to having conversations online like we're doing now with the Zoom platform, it's absolutely fantastic. And I think long after COVID has been sorted out, we will still be using Zoom. We will now be meeting and working and discussing with people, our peers, but also our customers. In this way, we'll continue to go on. And therefore, the more that we're confident in how we deliver our stories, how we look at products that we can associate with our story. So things like courses, really popular as well now. Running seminars and sessions as pop-up events are also very popular and are so easy to do and so cost effective.
So I'm so glad I asked you to tell us about the word speaking, because suddenly it's like, poof, it just opened up this whole kind of universe. And would you say that in a way, the term speaking, public speaking, has had to change with the times as well?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think absolutely. I think it is changing, and it needs to keep changing from a full PR. If you just think about public relations on its own, speaking was never really part of that. You would never tick that off as part of your marketing technique. You put in press releases and that type of thing, but you wouldn't actually put in, have we factored in that we want our key staff to work more from a speaking perspective as a marketing technique than sending emails. We're all getting absolutely bombarded with emails. I don't know what your inbox is like, but mine's just
It's winning.
overflows.
I mean,
It absolutely is. You sort of dread opening your email because you just know there's going to be just a raft of emails in there. But if you're talking and you're speaking and you're communicating like we are now, it's far easier to do business in this way.
And I think you're right. I mean, my work has been as adapted, adjusted. So I was always doing a little bit of online sessions. In fact, I was the one to promote it, but my customers would have preferred in-person events, whether I was doing a one-to-one at a venue, a team coaching, or big events. But now it's gone completely, I would say 100%, to the online. And I realized that I was giving people a lot more advice about how to host a sales meeting, for example, using video conferencing. I was helping them structure maybe a presentation which would have been a bit different if it was face to face. So I think you're right. As team leaders, if you're going to ask your colleagues, for example, to not just to respond to a quote by sending a proposal in a Word document by email, but actually to say to somebody, we'd like to jump on the Zoom Teams call, and I can talk you through the proposal. Then we need to be able to support people.
Yeah, and I think before COVID, that would have seemed a bit icky, but now it's, let's jump on a call. Let's have that. It's okay to have conversations. It's okay to chat, and it's okay to build relationships.
Yeah, so I call the plus one. So what is a plus one? I've sent the email with the attachment, which is a proposal. A plus one would be to offer that video call to talk the client through the proposal. They can then say, "No, we're fine," but at least you made the offer. So, I mean, certainly, I would like to suggest to you, Hilary, and please do correct me, that most speakers don't begin life or career saying, "I can't wait to be a speaker." It's certainly for me, it was accidental. I was invited, I think in the late 90s, early 2000s, to talk at an event, and I was absolutely petrified at the thought of it. And then you do another one, and eventually someone says, you should make more of something. You should actually invest in yourself and become a speaker. So, is that true? Is that that's not what is that the journey for most of us?
Yes, absolutely, it is. Absolutely. And there's a big difference between somebody speaking as a contributor on an event to somebody being paid to speak. And there's quite a big difference. And it's quite a journey that one can go through to be in the position to get into a paid to speak as a speaker, as a full-time job. But using speaking to amplify your brand is so important. And I just think back to the events that I've worked on in my career. And in every event I can think of, I have been looking for certain people to fulfill something within my event agenda. So that might be, I might have needed an accountant to talk about setting up your business. I might have needed a marketeer to talk to the audience about how to develop a marketing plan. And I'm looking for those speakers who don't know that they're speakers, but I've seen them or I've heard them, and therefore I know they have a bit of a profile and maybe some type of standing in the community or following. So then I have confidence that they know what they're doing before I approach them to say, would you like to be at this event to speak on this seminar panel or to do a short keynote on this? So you can see how speaking becomes that's such an important marketing tactic. And then once they've started, what we find is that once they've started to do this speaking, one, it's amplified the brand. Two, they get great collateral off the back of it, and to be associated with an event. They can get reviews from it and obviously use that then to develop themselves a short bio about the fact that they are also a keynote speaker. And now, being classed as a keynote speaker, we can all class ourselves as a keynote speaker once we've done a keynote, obviously. But that gives you great gravitas as part of your profile build as well. And, don't overlook any of that, because again, and that's free, you've developed that free, and it's your brand that you're selling then, not just the business brand.
Can you give us a quick description for some of us who don't know about what do you mean by a keynote speaker or presentation?
Yeah, so a keynote would tend to be a sort of 45 to 50 minute one speech piece, which would generally be about their background, about their story, what's happened within their story to give us that keynote that we're looking for, to give us that context of that story. That can be, a marketeer can do that. As I mentioned, an Olympian, a successful entrepreneur, the rags to riches story could be the keynote. It could also be centered around subject as well, but that's the sort of their one big speech. And then off the back of that, we'll have speakers that develop shorter talks, and they're sort of the offshoots from the main talk, if you like.
Thank you very much. And forgive me, is a keynote the same as a signature talk? Is that the same thing?
Yes, they can be, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned, I'm gonna ask all those questions you're here with
Yeah,
me today.
go
I
for
hope you
it.
don't mind. You mentioned, which I loved, this idea of pop-up sessions. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so again, pop-up sessions can be things like breakout sessions at an event, or it could just be you could do a series of events. So, for instance, I'll have some speakers that do, rather than just do one big keynote, they like to do a number of sessions over a number of weeks. So they will start to build up rapport with their audience, and they'll be able to offer that using things like Zoom if they're developing their own audiences, or for clients. So to be able to say, I've got a 4-week program that I could deliver to you over 4 weeks, or we could do it in 2 days chunks, whichever suits you. You're giving more value to that client then. Because
go on.
What you can find with speakers, when they've done the keynote, the customer wants more, but if they haven't got more than the keynote to give, they're leaving money on the table potentially. And that's where shorter sessions allows you to have a byproduct that you can further sell in.
Okay. So, I mean, depending on, how you go about it, would you say that somebody could, be surprised one day to get an invitation, and then they discover that actually there's been a positive reaction to the way in which you present that information, the way they share that story, then they may come up with sessions, and then the sessions can grow into the keynote, or the other way, which is, took the plunge, went for a keynote signature talk, and actually the reaction was such that they thought, I must find a way to share more of this, or I must find a way to empower people. Let me come up with a program.
Absolutely. And we've also got speakers that were trainers and coaches, and they had their short snippets that they built up, but actually they didn't have their keynote, they didn't have the signature. So they've now developed that signature talk, the keynote talk, for a main stage, so that they have that now as well. So they can now offer a secondary product. And building products off speaking is just fantastic. It's just such a great way to go.
Do you have any tips on that?
On building products?
Yeah,
certainly. So courses are a great thing. Memberships are really good with subscription services. Obviously, if you've got a growing audience, you've got an audience that like to follow you, like to hear your news and tidbits, you could do that as a monthly paid membership that people join. So they get to hear from you once a month. They get some downloads from you. They'll get a training or a teaching from you, whatever it is that you do or that you sell. So memberships are another great way. Books, obviously, books and speaking go together very well. Indeed, I am writing one at the moment.
So brave.
I know, I'm thinking that now. But yeah, so there's products like that are great. Yeah, absolutely. Masterminds is another one. Work with an exclusive group of people, take them away somewhere. Create your own special event, your own retreat. I could talk about events all day as well, actually, while we're on.
No, absolutely. But, interestingly, as part of the content marketing studio, this video series, I've got a subset which include actually writing your first book. So I'll let you know when I'm talking to some of those book authors, be right by the membership and so on. And I was reminded, this conversation reminds me of advice I received, from others, this idea of be very careful not to let people down by not thinking it through. So, you can sometimes be understandably so thinking about that presentation and you put all the effort into it, but actually you've not been able to step away to extrapolate the reactions and the likely demand for, well, what else have you got now? Because you got me so excited about your vision or your approach to something. What have you got?
Yeah. And to not have anything to give is the worst thing that you can do, because those people are hungry for information on the subject that you can give them, that you've warmed them up, you've got them fired up. And then if you've got nothing to give them, they will go off to find who can deliver that type of work for them.
Yeah. One of the reasons I was really looking forward to talking to you today, Hilary, is because as part of my mentoring coaching kind of approach, I talk about visibility a lot. And I talk about this idea of guest marketing, something that I coined many, many years ago, being a guest on someone else's platform to build your brand. But that could be a podcast, that could be someone else's YouTube channel, that could be someone else's blog and so on. But either way, you're going to have to find a way to share information, primarily using voice, because that tends to be, I would say, by and large, how people go about it. Then it can be transcribed into a blog series or into an ebook. So I think there's also this idea of a very virtual stage or very kind of narrow casting, where someone has a podcast for a very specific audience. Not have to be huge, but you as a guest can then build your brand very, very quickly, because there's a perfect match between the audience and your content, and go all the way to the stage with lots of people. But one thing that is sure across all those versions, nerves. And getting a little anxious and maybe thinking that, who am I, to have the audacity to walk on that virtual stage or physical stage and share what I know with others.
Yeah, absolutely. I come across that so much, that whole mindset piece, that whole procrastination piece, that, can I do it? Am I good enough? Who gives me the right? Who said that I can do this? There's an awful lot of that happens, certainly. But it's about trial and error, and it's about practicing. And in my opinion, visibility piece should be on every entrepreneur's marketing plan, and it needs to be up at the top, because hiding it underneath everything else, I'll get the press release out, I'll get some adverts running, I'll invest in a bit of this and a bit of that, and I'll go to that networking group and that networking group. But if you're not going with the aim of creating new contacts, building new bridges, and coming away with a bit of a checklist, 10 people I met today, 4 I need to follow up with, we're not doing ourselves justice. We're putting the work in, but we're not following through, and we're not finishing, and that's the biggest problem. And once we start to follow through and finish, we become a lot more confident because we know that actually people do know, like, and trust us, as I've mentioned before.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it was almost, this idea, well, I'll do the stuff that essentially helps me keep a distance from people. So I'll do
Yes.
the social media, I'll do the advertising, I'll do the SEO, the list can go on forever.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what about if you were to just, find a way to be invited at the next get together of that sector that you want to target? That might be actually, and they say, well, I'll do the other stuff first, because of course you're less likely to put yourself under the spotlight as such.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you, like you mentioned there, just about podcasts, they've exploded, haven't they? There's not been an absolute explosion of podcasts. Everybody's doing podcasts, and they need guests. We need guests. If I'm writing a blog, I want to be writing a blog about people that have inspired me or motivated me, or the brand activators are all people who have got great stories to tell and share that can absolutely help you develop your business because of their experiences. So I love to talk about them, and they love to talk about themselves and share their stories. And if they didn't, they wouldn't be the speakers that they are today.
No, absolutely right. So can we explore two things I want to ask you? I don't know which one to begin with, but I'll begin with story and storytelling, which you've used a couple of times now. What is meant, in your world, by story, and how do we use it to craft the good presentation, whether it's a product presentation or a keynote address?
Yeah. So the storytelling is all about your unique story, your journey to where you are today, how you got there, how you handled that, the highs and the lows, the learning curves that you've been on. And from that, what is your message? What is the story that you want to share that is going to be of interest to your people? And one of the most important things is to know who is your ideal client. Who is it that needs to hear your story? Who are they? Where do they hang out? Give them a name, give them a persona, so that you're very mindful every time you're creating content, working on that keynote, developing your content, that you are talking to somebody who you sort of know inside and out, because we're not all for everybody, and we need to be really niche. And that's, I would say, if a speaker goes off beam, that's where they go off beam, because they haven't nailed who that ideal client is.
It's not easy, because for a lot of businesses, sometimes to go for that targeted group feels that you're missing out on all the other groups you're not going after. And I've been in so many sales and marketing meetings, Hilary, where people say, yes, but what if? And I call this wishful marketing, as opposed to what we want to say, as long as you meet your sales target this month, targeting one group that is going to actually give you the return on effort is probably quite wise, even though sometimes I say to them, I know you want to save the world, but start with a city to begin with,
Yeah, definitely. And I can see when I talk to people that they think I'm asking them to turn off the tap. They think I'm asking them to turn off their money tap, but actually their money tap isn't flowing because they're trying to be everything to everybody. And the minute that they start to really niche that down, they can get very selective and really build their exclusive audience who will know, like, and trust them once they've got that messaging right. And therefore, once that happens, they will buy.
How do you, so I know that you introduced, I would say recently, compared to everything else you've done, that idea of coaching services for speakers. What do you help speakers with? What do you do as part of the service?
Yeah, sure. So this is my sort of lockdown new baby, this. Because when everything stopped and all our speaker engagements just were like postponed and then cancelling, like literally the whole sort of diary for all the speakers, we went to silence just straight away. But I started to catch up with the speakers like I'd normally do, but we started to have really meaningful conversations because we had time to have these conversations. And what I was seeing is that a good number of the speakers were having the same, I wouldn't say issues, but were going through some of the same thoughts and situations as other speakers. and were getting to points in their businesses where they were actually starting to plateau. And for a lot of my speakers, speaking is their full business. So it gave me an opportunity to really have a look in their businesses to see how they were running their speaker business. And a lot of them weren't running it as a business, if I'm to be perfectly honest with you. They were doing it because of the love of just speaking, and just sort of the peripheral stuff was just sort of falling by the wayside. So from the back of that, I did a couple of coaching calls with a couple of my speakers, and we got some quite good breakthroughs, well, really good breakthroughs really quickly, actually, which was brilliant. It was absolutely great. And from the back of that, I've had some people who obviously want to come into the bureau. I get a lot of requests for people wanting to be represented within the bureau, but they weren't quite ready. So we've been doing some work as well with them behind the scenes to get them speaker ready, which is really exciting. So a coaching arm has just, grown really from the back of the work that we've been doing. So it's still quite a young part of the business, but very exciting, and great fun to do as well. And within that, we're talking a lot about events and people running their own events, not just waiting to get the call to say, I've got a gig for you. Let's put on our own events and start showcasing what you can do.
I'm pleased I've asked you, because there's two lessons now. One is you got in touch with the customers and ask questions, which I don't think we do often enough. Again, too busy with the operations of running the business. So I think there's a reminder for all of us. But also you did it on the small scale to begin with. Then it was essentially pressure tested and you could go there. So you mentioned, I was working with them to become speaker ready. So what's in the wish list or shopping list for you when someone is speaker ready?
Yeah, so they want to become speaker ready. So what's the backstory? So that's my first thing. That's where I'll start.
Okay.
What is it that you want to be speaking on? What makes us think that you can do that? Then we need to craft the story, and there's a big piece of work that goes on there to make sure that we've got it right and we've got the right feel for it. And there's a lot of testing, and we run focus groups with our speakers, so we can just trial the content out with other people first in their industry that they're wanting to niche into. So we do that type of work. And then we start to look at putting speaker bios together, show reels together, marketing, artwork, looking at where will they speak, where are they going to get this business from, where do we find our market. We do a good piece on the marketing piece for them, build out a bit of a strategy as well.
Because you're right, if speaking as a marketing tactic, is part of the overall plan, whether it's lead generation or it's actually a paid for occupation, you've got to, like as you would with anything else, you do the research about, well, who and where am I going to get the gigs?
Yes, absolutely. It's no good just to say, well, okay, I'm a speaker now, tick. You need to be like, right, okay, where am I going to do this? Where am I going to find that audience? And there's great conversations to be had just now. So
absolutely. In terms of is that what prompted you to compile this amazing resource you've got on your website called 100 Stages to Speak On? Yeah. But also, how long did it take you to do that?
Quite a while. Actually, that's just such good timing, Pascal. I'm editing it at the moment, actually, because of COVID. So a lot of the events have postponed for now, obviously, because in the 100 Stage Guide, it has the event itself, the website address, the contact details for who to call. It had it all in there, the dates that these were taking place, and a bit about each of these events. So, and that was all, can I just say, in the public domain anyway. I just curated that and brought that together. So I'm just really conscious that people have got so much from it, but I'm just updating it because of COVID, because a lot of events have obviously changed again. They've moved. Just before I came on air, the business show in London has just moved again. It's moved out another 6 months out now. So they're moving the big shows. And these big shows are great because they have an abundance of speaking opportunities at them. So they're really great from a research perspective, if you're looking at getting into speaking, just to see who's out there and what type of events are covered. So that's why I'm updating it, because I think it gives quite a lot of inspiration, actually, for people to say, actually, there are a lot of stages out in the event space. And additionally to that, there are a lot of speaking opportunities in the normal business workspace all the time, whether that's at a networking group or a regional or a national networking group. There are opportunities all around.
You're right. I mean, when we do the exercise with my customers, what we call the trust networks, so we want to target a particular clientele or audience base. Who do they trust now? Who do they turn to for advice and support? Once you just Google the stuff, you discover like a whole ecosystem, business ecosystem you had no idea existed around the corner. But because, of course, it's your customers' ecosystem, and you sometimes as a supplier or speaker are not necessarily au fait with what's going on in their world.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
So you mentioned when we began this conversation, the fact that, a lot of events have chosen sometime to push to 2021, 2022 sometimes. Others have gone the virtual route, and you had a bit of a play with some platforms. Where are you now? I mean, are there some software solutions and platforms that are working well to support both event organizers and speakers?
Yeah. So I'm working with a client at the moment, and they've actually brought in Events Air into their company because they want to be using events going forward on the longer term. And there's a couple of other clients that I'm working with that are looking at doing the same, which is really interesting, because previously it would only be generally events managers that would be using the events software.
I see.
But they are seeing it as, this is quite a cool piece of kit that we could really benefit from. I mean, this platform isn't cheap by any standards, but they obviously feel that they can have control to run their own events. They've got quite big teams in other places, so they want to put on a few more events and not just wait to be told COVID's over, let's get back to doing events. They want to keep that within their marketing plan. So I would say Events Air has been the one that I've been sort of talking about more than others. But Zoom has been blinking brilliant. I've been on some mega events, not my events, but been guests on other events, and they've had big audiences and they've gone down really well. And I love to see the fact that people are actually enjoying networking online. It's just so good, and it's just so impromptu as well, which is so handy. You get a notification for something that's only a day away or 2 days away, not 7 weeks away. Everything's sort of happening straight away, which is really good to see.
And Zoom, I saw a press release yesterday. They're going to add even more functions and features. They've got essentially Zoom apps. They're going to be called Zaps. I know, I'm sure the marketing team thought long and hard about that one. But they're also going to allow just more ways in which you can manage the sessions. Because ultimately, I mean, don't you wish you'd bought some shares in Zoom a few months ago?
Who'd have thought it, though?
And of all the brands, I mean, it's just remarkable, why Zoom and not the others. That makes any sense. But yeah. I think maybe the name maybe was just one of those where maybe somebody wrote a blog post, someone like you maybe one day just did a review on Zoom and then suddenly just exploded.
Yeah, absolutely. But look at Microsoft Teams as well. Everyone's using that as well at the moment, aren't they? That's been really popular.
Yeah. So I think, you're back to that, which is, I was talking to somebody else as part of this mini series around investing in yourself and using voice. I was talking to Simon Raybould, I think only a week or two ago, and we were saying that what has happened is this the ultimate convergence between video production and public speaking. And it's not easy, it's not easy for everybody. So you've got to do your research and break it up and so on. So on that very point, did you have to also support let's say, stage performers to become virtual beings as such?
Yeah. And we're a very forgiving society as well, though, aren't we? And I think people expect it not to be quite right. People are working from home. They're in that home environment. They've got the pajamas on most of the time or whatever, and I think we are a lot more relaxed from that point, from that position at the moment. And I think from that point, it's a great time to get into doing some speaking, because everybody is so very forgiving that when you start up, people want to hear about your story. That's what they're there to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, of all the sessions I've had, with regard to podcasting, video casting, and so on, when we spend a moment to just look at someone's career and journey, I can tell people are just, leaning, because this is what we know from childhood. The story of the hero or heroes going from A to B and having to face obstacles.
Absolutely, and the more of that we hear, the better the story is, right?
Absolutely,
and we've all got a story. It's how we tell it to link it into our products and what we do to help us to be seen as an expert.
Yeah, and I think for me certainly, and for others that I know that have become speakers over many, many years, it wasn't overnight for sure. It takes a while to have the confidence to join the two, but also sometimes just remember it, because very often you're so busy trying to showcase how much you know about a product or a technique or whatever, that you forget completely the story element.
Yes.
To even just say something, this is, by the way, how I became to know this, or this is how others have, and bring all the different senses into it and so on. And I think very often the marketing bit has been hijacked by some weird concept of people are so worried about what their peers are going to think about their marketing effort that in a process they say very little.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a missed opportunity as well. And it's what we've said a couple of times, isn't it? People want to buy from people, and it's your knowledge, your experience, your backstory, your expertise. That's what people want to hear, and that's what they want to hear again and again. And we do worry, absolutely. The whole confidence piece around speaking is huge. It absolutely is. But it can be measured, it can be worked on, and that's the most important thing.
Well, thanks very much for that. Listen, our time together, would you believe, is nearly to an end. It goes quick every single time I have people like you on the show. So before you go, I would like you to take part in the little fun quiz, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So there's no hard questions, because I can't.
This is the hardest bit of the whole interview. Yes. This now
talking about things you're not an expert on. But so there's just fun questions that people can get to know you and like you and trust you more. So let's start with Zoom, since we mentioned it a moment ago. If you could have a Zoom call with a famous person, be it from the world of science, entertainment, or even business, who would your guest be on your Zoom call?
Oh my goodness, who would it be? I don't know whether not to play safe here.
Just share your story.
Michelle Obama, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have her book on the to read list, but yeah, fine choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can I make sure that you let us know when that happens? Can all have a watch and a listen. Next, you can
buy my course.
Next, you can organize a private online concert on Facebook Live. So, who would be the band or the artist who play for you and your family?
U2.
Wow, no hesitation there.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think they're great.
Oh, fine choice. Well, since you have the pleasure of listening to U2, you can also order some food. You can't have a concert without food. So for you and your family, what food would you order to treat yourselves?
I would have to go for, do you know what? I'd go for a Sunday dinner.
All right. Well, because it's such a pain to cook normally.
No, I just Sunday dinner, but I have one every single week without fail.
Yeah. Fine choice.
There's nothing posh about me. I'm afraid.
All right. If you could have your own radio show, what would you talk about, and who would be your co-host?
So it'd all be about events, parties, speaking. It's all about that with me. It's all about visibility. It's about enjoying yourself, enjoying life, and getting the most out of it. And to me, that's through events and parties and happenings. So that's that. And what was the other bit? Who would I partner with?
Yeah, who would be your co-host? Yeah.
Who would be my co-host? Oh God. Oh God.
Someone that can help with visibility.
Who would be my co-host? Graham Norton.
Ooh, I want to be listening to that. So it'd be a hoot, honestly. Excellent. Very good choice. Final question for you. When all this is behind us and in the future we can move and travel more freely, where would you take you and your family for the next holiday?
Well, I'm going to say what we spoke about at the start of this. So I just happened to find out by accident that it's my 50th next year. I knew that wasn't the accident bit, but I've just found out that my husband has booked us on a trip to Mauritius. So we're off there next year.
Wow. As well, I think your husband is, doing the right thing
Yeah,
here.
the boy's done good at the moment. Yeah.
Well, that's excellent.
Absolutely.
Well, fingers crossed, you guys should go and have a wonderful time there. So listen, Hilary, thank you so much for taking part in the content marketing studio and helping us reflect on how we can use speaking as a marketing tactic to increase our visibility. If people have more questions or want to follow up on this, video and podcast, where can they find out more about you and your business?
Yeah, sure. So the company is called the Brand Activators. So you can find us online. We've got our website, so check that out. We're also on LinkedIn and on Facebook. On Facebook, we have a Facebook group. So anybody is very welcome to come and join that free group. We just talk about speaking and events and giving resources out to help you move forward in your speaker journey. And that group is called Step Up, Stand Out by Hilary Dunne.
Yes, which is also the name, if I'm not mistaken, of a checklist available on your website as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So
there's loads of resources.
crikey, if you can't start your, speaking journey this year, thanks to Hilary, you're doing something wrong. Well, thanks again for your time today. And to our viewers and listeners, thank you again for joining us for this conversation with speaking expert, Hilary Dunne. If you have any suggestions, recommendations, and feedback, do leave them in the usual places. Until the next one, go out there and make sure your content is better and faster. Bye for now.